Hi, everyone. So, this morning I want to talk about a subject that often comes up for me and has come up over the years, over and over again. And the question is, do I have free will? Do I actually have free will, or don't I? And if I don't, then where's life coming from? And who's in charge here? So the question of do I have free will revolves around the question also of who am I? Who is this I that thinks it has free will, and how much free will does it actually have? If we really start to examine this question of free will, do you have free will around what's happening in your body? Not really. You can't control your heart. You can't, what's happening to your liver, your digestive process. We know that somehow we can affect a lot of the processes happening in the body. If I get excited, my heart rate goes up. If I'm worried about things, my digestive process can be disturbed. So yeah, there is clearly a relationship between what's happening to me as a person and what my body's doing. But I don't actually have free will around what's going on there. It's not that I can say my heart needs to slow down or my digestion needs to improve. It doesn't work like that. So there is obviously some place inside me that does have control over this body. Clearly the body functions in a most astonishing way, despite the trillions of cells in the body, despite the trillions of things that are actually happening in the body. I don't really have control over that. And even things like something more simple like raising my hand up, well, I don't even know how to do that. I don't know what muscles involved. I don't know. I know that if I want my hand to go up, it goes up. But am I in control of that? I don't even know how to do it. I can't describe to you how I do it. I just want my hand to go up and my hand goes up. If I walk down my steps, yeah, it's miraculous actually, the way it happens, because it's a very complex process. And robots, for example, it takes a lot of money to build a robot and a lot of intelligence to get that robot to walk. Walk downstairs. Downsteps is even more complicated. So I don't even have control over that. So what do I have control over? Do I have control over thinking? Okay, let's examine that. If you've ever tried meditation, can you stop your thinking? It just goes on. It's totally mechanical. The thinking process is totally mechanical. It goes on and on and on. And if I do meditation, thoughts keep coming on. I can watch the thoughts, but often I get caught up in the thinking process and then think that I'm controlling thinking. And yet thinking just goes on. If I try to stop it, it doesn't just stop. So don't have much control over my thinking. Do I have control over my emotions? That's a difficult one even. Emotions just arise. Hell, I get excited, I get angry, I get depressed. Often it's driven by thinking, but often emotions just come up. So it's not that as if I can control my emotions and be happy the whole day. I'm going to be happy today. It doesn't work like that. Suddenly something comes along and boom, I'm unhappy, I'm angry, I'm irritated. So don't have much control over my emotions either. So I don't have control over my thinking very much. I can say that I use thinking sometimes when I want to make a map for my teaching, then I can use thinking. But even then, it does get a little bit haphazard. And very often, intuition arises when I'm involved in trying to prepare something, an article. Intuition arises. Well, intuition is not thinking. Intuition is something which arises from somewhere deep and arises into my thinking mind. And then I say, I got a good idea. Didn't think that. It just arose. So thinking just goes on. And there's something else that feeds into thinking, and we call that intuition. So there's something here that's interesting if we really pay attention. First of all, thinking just goes on. I can somewhere inside me I can actually try and use the thinking in a more logical way so that it's not totally haphazard. So there's something deep inside me that can use the thinking. There's something deep inside me that seems to have some kind of intelligence that arises, and then I call that intuition. I don't have much control over my emotions. Imagination, yeah, I can maybe use thinking mind to cultivate an imaginary idea. So I have a little bit of control around that. What drives me? Well, there's a whole lot of other unconditioned drives, like the instinctual drives, my sex drive, my social drive, my fight-flight drive. These are all animal instincts, and they will take over. Any spiritual ideas that I have get taken over by this animal instincts inside me. Fight-flight just takes over, no question about that. And sex drive is a major, major drive and can be really problematic. I mean, look at the amount of rape that goes on around the world. So a lot of people are driven by all these animal instincts. Free will? Where's free will in all this? So it's not straightforward. And I question very often this whole thing around free will. Even let's take the example of driving. Well, in order to learn to drive, you have to learn the technique, and you think it very clearly, how your thinking mind and a bit of memory involved over there, and you learn how to drive the car. But you don't drive well. Somewhere along the way, you let go of the thinking mind and something else takes over, something deep inside you, some other intelligence that takes over, and then you start to drive well when the thinking mind is out of the way. If you bring thinking back into driving, you don't drive well. So there's another aspect of ourselves that's involved in driving, and a lot of other activities. An artist really knows that when he's painting or doing whatever artistry he's doing, making music, there's a different sense that he makes contact with. Something arises. We call that art, when something arises from some other space, as it were, and expresses itself into the world. So again, the question of free will, I don't think the free will is not really identified with the thinking process. I think we need to be careful around that, because we tend to think that I have free will. Thinking doesn't have free will. Is there free will in a deeper aspect of ourselves? So then we have to ask, where are the deeper controls? What's really going on here? Who's in charge of this vehicle that I am? Not thinking. Thinking doesn't have a lot of free will at all. Thinking is just a thinking apparatus. There's another deeper part of us that is in contact with kind of, let's call it knowing and deep feeling. It's much deeper. And there's where we start to come into the question of, who am I at a deeper level? I'm not my thinking mind. Thinking is just a mechanism of thinking. Imagination is a mechanism to use for imagining. But there is something deeper when I use the word I. That we tend to attach to the thinking mind, but actually let that go. And then we come into contact with something much deeper. And does that deeper being that I am have free will? Well, that's an interesting question. Because do I know who that I am is? It's not the thinking mind, and it's not just the emotions. Emotions just happen. Imagination is just there. But there's a deeper source of who I am. It's the one that is in control of this body, that knows how to make the body work, that knows how to walk this body, that knows how to lift the hands up of this body. That's somebody much deeper. And that's what we often call the soul. So the more superficial part that seems to be attached to the thinking mind and the emotions is what we call the ego. very narrow, self-centered being that thinks it's in control. It's not in control because it's only driven by thinking and emotions. But at a deeper level, much deeper level, what we call the soul, where our feeling, our knowing is, when we start to expand the sense of who we are to that part of us as well, then there's thinking, then there's emotions, then there's imagination, then there's feeling, then there's knowing. These are deeper parts. When all these functions are brought together, somewhere deep inside is a center that's able to use all these different functions. Does that center have free will? That's an interesting question, because how do we get in touch with that deeper part of who we are, the soul? And does that soul even ask questions like free will? We need to go there, and I'll do that in another talk. But for now, let's be careful and ask who has free will, not who I think I am, because that part of me, the thinking mind, doesn't have free will, not as far as I'm concerned. It's a deeper part, and we need to come in contact with that deeper part. Have a good day.